Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe it's all about them and no one else matters. And in today's episode, people are sharing their stories about the worst roommates ever, and some of these stories will have you going, how in the world did you make it this far in life? Because seriously, some of these adults cannot freaking adult. I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. I think wasting water is bad. Am I crazy? Because this housemate I had is a 30-plus-year-old woman from a very, very wealthy family in Korea. She has no job and her parents pay for everything. Her car, her clothes, her graduate degree, and of course, the master bedroom with a private bathroom in our apartment. Things were a bit rocky at first. Without notice, she would hide her boyfriend in her room for up to 4 days a week. We asked her to let us know ahead of time and maybe introduce him to us properly. Instead, I caught her sneaking him in and out at 3 a.m. After that confrontation, she did not bring him over again. So that said, back in December, she announced she would move out because her room was too cold. We had 1 month to find someone. A month isn't a long time in my opinion to find someone, but she insists she can't stay any longer. We don't turn on the central heating because I'm in the loft and all the heat rises. My room becomes an inferno. In the summer, we turn on the AC, and I admit it does get cold downstairs. Our control panel was stuck at 69 degrees Fahrenheit. I agreed to not use the AC until it was replaced. Still, the weather got cold and we didn't turn on the heating. Also, this is LA. We weren't freezing. It was a rainy 55 degrees outside and a tolerable 67 degrees inside. One day, we awoke to the fire alarm at midnight. Our roommate, on purpose, left the hot shower running for hours and hours. She was trying to fill up her room with steam. At the time, we didn't know this. That is, until she said, I have to move out. I've tried everything. I even turned on the hot shower the whole day with the bathroom door open because I'm so cold. Hearing her say that, I thought, what? Why didn't she use any of her 3 heaters and the heated blanket my roommate got her? She then said, all 3 heaters I tried. It made me warm, but it's cheap China-made stuff and it smells burnt and my skin gets dry. I prefer the hot steam from the shower. And listen, this woman can afford Gucci shoes, tens of thousands of dollars of purses, Chanel dresses, and multiple at-fault car crashes. But she won't buy a proper heater or a humidifier? My other roommates finally spoke up, and they said this affects all of us as the water bill will be insane. And this is her response. She says, I shower a lot at my boyfriend's place. It cancels out. Plus, we don't pay for heating. That's when I respond, as a person who doesn't come from a privileged background, wasting water is not acceptable. And here comes the most stunning part of the conversation. She then says, please don't say I'm privileged. Having a financial support system is not privilege. You don't know what it's like for me. It's really hard, you know. It's really hard having to ask your parents for money all the time. I need $1,000. I need $6,000. My mom said I should move out since I'm cold all the time. And hearing her say that, I had no words, guys. Like, what could I have said? I told her all of us work to pay our own rent. 2 of us had worked 3 to 4 part-time jobs every semester, and one of my roommates was even homeless to pay for tuition. That's when I said, you're the only one here who can afford to move out in a month because you're cold and can't be bothered with the dry air from your heaters. That's privilege. She finally agreed to give us 2 months to find a new housemate. And the cherry on top is she asked us to keep an eye out for her expensive purse that would arrive after she moved out. Then she came out of her room giggling and twirling, saying, look, I have new clothes. It was some luxury brand that I can't be bothered to remember. So yeah, beware international students. Some are completely disconnected from reality. You know what? That might be so freaking true. And some international students are freaking rich, I tell you. Like, I once knew this one kid in high school who was sent here from China to live with his uncle for school. And listen guys, his parents gave him like a $5,000 allowance per month. Just imagine being in grade 11, having $5,000 a month of disposable income. Like, the guy would take groups of kids out for lunch at McDonald's all the time. And that's not all, guys. In grade 12, as a graduation present, I remember him telling me that his dad was making him choose between a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Like, this kid really wanted a BMW M3, but his dad was like, no, that's for the poor people. But anyways, yeah, her complaining that she's not privileged because it's so hard for her to have to ask mommy and daddy for $6,000 when she needs it. I have no words, guys. Like, some people literally live lives that some of us can't even comprehend. And this person comments, I dated a woman who did a similar thing. She had ultra wealthy grandparents who set her up for life with a trust fund, but she would bitch about money issues. And when I asked her to elaborate, she would whine about having to ask the bank to give her some of her own trust fund. My parents are fairly well off, but this level of spoiled floored me. So I moved in with my 86-year-old grandpa at the end of last year. What I originally thought was a good opportunity to spend time with my grandpa during his final years and to save money on rent ends up becoming a huge trap/setback. The environment is so controlling and toxic. My grandpa's been letting my late grandma's cousin's son, James, 58 years old, live here for the last 6 years as a family favor to his mother. It's family lore that James used to sleep under a bridge because he was homeless. He couldn't figure out life himself and has to live with someone to get by. None of his own relatives would let him live with them. So what I now know is that James is an entitled piece of crap who thinks other people should live and cater to him, rather than living respectfully together like normal people do. James breaks everything around the house. Appliances, amenities, you name it. But worse is that when he breaks stuff, he doesn't let anyone know. He either lets it sit there or hides it, or even worse, he'll make it seem like you broke it. He also lies directly when asked about things that go missing around the house, and he's selfish. He won't even move someone's laundry from the washer to the dryer because, quote, it's not my responsibility. Even if he needs to use the washer, he'll just take your clothes out and then plop them on the floor, leaving them wet. James has made it clear from the first day I moved in that he doesn't like me, and he has no intention of letting me get comfortable in the house. He says he views me as some sort of a threat because I require clean spaces. I like having a clean kitchen, clean dining area, all that stuff. Everything came to a head a few days ago when James started eating my stuff. I have these fruit popsicles from Outshine, which are really good by the way, and James also buys himself the same brand of fruit bars. I bought 2 boxes of flavors different from the ones that James had in the fridge. I hid them because Grandpa told me that James will eat everything in sight if you leave your stuff out. That night, when I got off my closing shift, I noticed my ice cream was missing. I was furious. 1, because I hadn't had any, and 2, because James never speaks a word to me, like complete silence, unless I'm doing something he doesn't like opening a window for ventilation or adjusting the thermostat, or for leaving too much water on the bath mats. I was pissed that he had the nerve to eat all my popsicles. So I talked to my grandpa, who asked us to bring any grievances to him, and I asked him to tell James to not eat my stuff. Again, 58 years old. Of course, James lied about it, and he said he had no idea what I was talking about, and that he never ate my stuff. I just let it go, and then went to buy more. Maybe 3 days later, I come home from another night shift to find the last bar of my box missing. I was pissed because this entitled a-hole had left the box in the freezer, which I never would have done. I know he ate it. I went to my grandpa, who then gave excuses for him again, and told me to let it go because he said he didn't eat anything the first time. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I let my anger get the best of me after the second time. So I went back in the kitchen and I grabbed 3 out of his 10 cold pressed drinks and I poured them down the sink. I don't regret pouring them out. He deserved that crap. I knew my grandpa wasn't gonna stick up for me. When James got home, he freaks out. He starts slamming doors and ends up punching walls. The next morning, I decided I felt too bad about messing with his stuff and decided to replace them. I was on my way out the door when James confronts me and my grandpa talking, and he calls me all kinds of nasty things. One of the things being a thieving lesbian bitch. I still don't regret it. I bet he won't touch my stuff now. This was about a week and a half ago, and I just ordered my mini fridge a few minutes ago. I'm not proud of what I did, but I am proud that I defended myself because normally I wouldn't. You know what? I've read enough psycho roommate stories to know that what OP did is probably gonna start a war. Like, we don't know if James is silently plotting revenge right now or what, but I'd suggest getting locks on the bedroom door if OP doesn't already have one, and one for the mini fridge. And honestly, if I were in OP's shoes, I would be looking to move out because clearly James has rage issues when it comes to OP fighting back. And without Grandpa laying down the law and keeping him accountable for his bad behavior, things might only be getting worse from here. And this person comments, honestly, if your grandpa wants to deal with James, fine, let him. Move out. Just because your grandpa wants to deal with him doesn't mean you have to. You can visit your grandpa instead. So back in 2021, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with my best friend. Let's call her Sandy because why not? My little brother, who was 18 at the time, also moved in with us. I was fine covering the majority of rent and bills because my brother was still in high school. Rent was $13.50 a month and things started off okay, but that didn't last. Sandy had a dog that she barely cared for. She would leave him locked up all day while she stayed out with her friends. So I ended up walking him, cleaning up after him, and dealing with him peeing on all of our stuff, including my brother's PlayStation. She never replaced it or paid him back. For the record, I don't even like the dog. A few months in, Sandy starts flaking on rent. She would pay $200 or $300, and I would be stuck covering the rest. She worked at a warehouse and she got paid weekly, but she started taking all of that money to the casino. She would lie about going to work and basically ghosting all financial responsibility. She stopped buying groceries, started stealing my stuff, and acted like I was her parent, not her roommate. It got to the point where I told her, go to the leasing office to figure something out because I can't keep covering for you. And she got mad. She then figured out if I paid my portion, she wouldn't be charged a late fee. So she starts paying even later or not even at all. To top it off, she starts telling mutual friends that I was a bad roommate and that I was shaming her. Never to my face, of course. Just passive-aggressive vibes and side eyes when her friends came over. One of my other best friends even turned on me because of the crap that Sandy was saying behind my back, and I was done. So why didn't I just leave, you ask? Great question. We renewed the lease, and I know, lesson learned. So fast forward, Sandy asked if her cousin, 40 years old, and her 3 kids can move in because they were getting kicked out of a friend's house. I said we could talk about it. She promised that they would stay a week, maybe, and contribute $100 total, but they had food stamps. I said fine, as long as there's no dogs and no cats, as I'm allergic to cats. She agreed. We get back from lunch and they're already moving in. And yes, they brought a cat. So that's when I decided if I was gonna be disrespected, I would go full fake nice mode. I bought the cousin flowers, gave her daughter flowers too, and I made it look like I was 100% on board, just enough for them to buy it. Meanwhile, I'm watching 4 extra people, 2 grown sons, 1 daughter, and a grown-ass cousin treat my apartment like it's a Motel 6. They moved in beds, invited friends over, and they turned the place into chaos. And then my electric bill hit. $700. And that's in 1 week. It had been $100 before they showed up. Thank God the electric company thought something was wrong and they charged $300, which is crazy, and that was my final straw. I looked at my brother and told him to get serious, and we start apartment hunting. We found a gated spot, got approved, and that's when I told Sandy, "Hey girl, I found a place. You and your family can stay here. I'll just remove myself from the lease." Hearing me say that, she was shocked. She said I blindsided her, and I reminded her that this had been coming for a while. It took over a week to get my name off because no one else wanted to take over the lease. Eventually, they got the 18-year-old daughter to sign. The day I moved out, Sandy went to eat. I had packed everything and was gone before she came back. I left the keys and I never looked back. A week later, she texted asking if I could help with rent because, quote, "I didn't give them enough time to save and I sprung this on them out of nowhere and I owe her rent money now for the inconvenience." I just told her, yeah, and then ghosted. I never paid a dime. My dad and brother were right. I didn't owe her crap. So my best friend and her son, who's 2 years old, are the reason that I will never open my home to anybody again. Let's call her Tara. She was living with her parents for about a year after her divorce. From what I've been told, Tara's mom told her to clean her room, and Tara had a meltdown and she ran away. Keep this in mind for later. Of course, I didn't know this. And Tara calls me crying, saying she was now homeless because her parents kicked her out, and she was gonna lose custody of her son. My wife and I quickly offered her to stay with us while she found a job and got back on her feet. We had been best friends for 20-ish years. Our families saw each other as family, and we had matching tattoos, the whole thing. I wanted to do everything I could to help her and her son. So my wife, Tara, and myself all talked about expectations and general routines. We expected her to get a job as soon as possible, but we didn't want her to put any money towards our mortgage, utilities, or groceries. We just simply wanted her to save up and help keep house. We said we had no problems watching her son for job interviews or while she was working to help save on childcare. There was no set rule for chores. We just agreed that we could all be adults and clean when we saw something that needed it. My wife and I gave a 9-month time frame for her to save as much as she could, and then we need the room she would be staying in for the baby we were expecting. We all agreed, and she started moving in. I sent Tara money for gas, food, diapers, and a hotel to hold off until she could fully make the transition. So Tara moves in, and everything went well for about a week. She said she was searching for a job, making a budget, going back to school, and that her child support would fully pay for daycare. But as the weeks passed, her laziness and lack of contribution slowly became more and more apparent. My wife's a first responder, and she easily works 16 to 18 hours a day. And I work in aviation, averaging 12 to 14-hour days. We were both coming home exhausted to a trashed home. There would be burnt food in the oven, crap-filled diapers on couches and countertops, goldfish and other crumbs and gels embedded everywhere, and period blood anywhere you could sit. Anytime I would try to address this, I would just be told, "Oh, I was just going to clean that. I didn't even notice, blah blah blah," but it never got better. Fast forward a month, and Tara had not applied to any jobs, and she kept saying it's because of her mental health. Meanwhile, she was going out clubbing 3 to 4 times a week and leaving her son with us with no notice or communication. And she kept bringing men back to our house with her. My wife and I said we weren't comfortable with this, especially with our own kid and dogs in the mix. This turns into a fight, how we don't trust her judgment or see her as an adult. We brought up how she was making no effort to get a job and how leaving her son was irresponsible and inconsiderate. We told her she needs to get a job or get out as soon as possible and that we would no longer watch her son when she left him unattended. After a few job interviews and a couple of weeks, Tara lands a job where she needs a background check and fingerprinting before she could start. She then came to me for help, and I gently lended her the money, about $500 to get these done, and that was stupid, I know. She started her job shortly after, and everything seemed fine. She had a job and childcare, and the house wasn't as dirty because neither of them were home most of the day, and there was way less tension. And that's when she gets her first paycheck. She sent me $60 to pay me back for everything, and she spent every other penny she earned frivolously. I'm talking Gucci perfumes, luxury clothes, new makeup, hair extensions, eyelash extensions, and expensive salon trips. This went on for about 2 months. She then starts blaming our kid, who if given a choice would never step foot in a shower, for stealing her expensive Dior face wash and expensive body scrubs. This of course turns into a massive fight when our kid denied the accusations, and we said that we were not going to replace them. This was the last straw for my wife. We all sat down, and she said we needed her to leave sooner rather than later. Tara then said she already found an apartment with a coworker, and she was just waiting for the move-in date. Well, that date came and went. We asked again, and she said she found a cheaper apartment, and she was waiting for that move-in date. Wash, rinse, repeat for 3 months. Sprinkle in fights, nagging, angry texts, more burnt food, destroyed house goods, leaving the door open and all 4 of my dogs getting out, but making no attempt to get them back, saying, "They're just dogs, what's the big deal?" You get the vibe. One day, while Tara was at work, I needed to get something that was being stored in the closet of the room she was using. This was the first time I'd been in there since she moved in, 'cause, privacy. There were literal piles of decaying food, my mattress had no sheets and was covered in makeup, period blood, baby crap, and other mystery stains, and on top of that, her son had chewed holes into my windowsills and baseboards and ripped chunks of paint and drywall off the walls. If that wasn't bad enough, the kids scribbled on every surface within reach. The TV was broken, there were kids' toys and shoes covered in dried dog crap thrown everywhere, and bugs. It was like a level 2 hoarder room. I immediately texted her demanding she clean the room, and I said I wasn't going to pay an exterminator, so she'd better figure something out. She then texted back that it was a depression room, and that I should be more understanding, and I would have, except it wasn't a depression room. It was an I'm a slob room who doesn't care about destroying other people's homes. I stood firm that the room had to be cleaned by the end of the day, and it was a biohazard and completely disrespectful. I said I don't care where she went or what happened to her, but she had 2 weeks to get out of my home with no exceptions. She said I was being inhumane and I had no right to do that. And why would she say that, you might ask? She was pregnant and she didn't know who the dad was yet. Tara had ultrasounds dated a few days before, and pregnancy tests to prove it. This did give me pause, but my wife reminded me of our trip to visit family overseas. We both agreed we don't want her staying alone in our home, and that the 2 weeks was the absolute longest she could stay. I went back to tell Tara what we agreed upon, and she raged, like scream crying, throwing a tantrum type of rage. A little over 4 hours later, Tara had 3 men in our house helping her pack her things, loudly declaring how glad she was to be getting out of this prison, and that she was going to be pressing charges on us. She left with all of her goods, stole things from me and my wife, but still managed to leave all of the mess. While I was cleaning the mess in the weeks to follow, I found a diary type thing. I decided to take a look inside, and if it was important, I was gonna send it over to her. I glanced through the pages and I saw my name a bunch. Curiosity got the best of me and I read deeper. In there, she had written some of the most insulting, hateful things about me, with dates from 10+ years ago to a couple of weeks old. I had genuinely thought of us as family. Even now, it's hard not to make excuses for her and how she treated me and my family. So Tara, if you're reading this, F you. F you for trying to get in between my wife and I, thinking that I would be your sugar daddy. F you for using me, for lying to me, for being a crappy mom, for making me think that I was your best friend, but you never really were mine. And by the way, you owe me about $30,000 for everything you've ruined, stole, and the money you borrowed. Edit. For all of y'all rightfully saying that I should call CPS, there is no longer a need. The boy's living with his grandma and sometimes his dad. I have no idea where Tara is, but the baby's safe. What a post that was, guys. And you know what they say, users are going to use. Like, that's one thing I can't understand about situations like this. Like, how can you treat someone who's literally given you everything you needed like complete crap? A best friend, no less. I'm just so sorry that Opie had to find out his best friend was like that. Like, it's gotta be truly heartbreaking to find out that someone you genuinely cared for is the biggest piece of crap to walk the earth. Like, finding out that she had a diary filled with nasty stuff about OP, holy moly, I'm heartbroken just knowing that. I'm just glad OP's out of that mess. And before we end the episode, guys, this last OP shares a kind of gross, weird roommate story. So I only lived with this roommate a year and a half before I couldn't take her craziness and I moved out a year ago. I was in my mid-40s and this woman was almost 70. We had been friends for over 10 years. I knew going in that she had mental issues and she wasn't taking her meds, but I hadn't realized how bad she really was. I could write a book on all the weird and mean things she did while I lived with her, but this story particularly involved me. Out of nowhere, she starts asking me to not throw my used tampons away, and instead save them for her. Disgusted, I refused, and I demanded to know why she wanted them. And here's some needed backstory. We live in the Pacific Northwest, and she had a separate small piece of property right in the middle of nowhere, with an RV hookup that she used for recreation or to rent out to vacationers. Right next to that was another small property with a log cabin she used to own, right before selling it to a woman as equally unbalanced as her. And the two had been fighting ever since. One time, they got in such a heated argument that the neighbor pulled a gun on her and fired a couple of shots in her direction. The lady then decided to go on my roommate's property and illegally cut down a bunch of her trees. Instead of calling the cops, she decides to take revenge into her own hands. There was a pack of wolves spotted in the area, and my roommate thought it would be a great idea if she could lure the wolves onto the woman's property to scare her, and she thought my bloody tampons would work. Now, first of all, I didn't think that would work, but second, if something did happen to that lady, I don't want my DNA to be scattered all around her house. When I told my roommate no, she became furious with me, stating that she would use her own tampons if she still had periods, and it was the least I could do if we wanted to stay friends. I still refused, and she was mad at me for a week afterwards. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave you guys with that one because what the heck, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, another one where neighbors think they're entitled to break into people's yards to use their pools. It's such a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.